If your blood sugar is out of control, your body will warn you, but not in obvious ways. In fact, the signs are so subtle that most people ignore them for years, until it turns into something serious, something that could have been caught much earlier if they had only known what to look for. And right now, you might already be experiencing one or more of these symptoms, living with them every single day, explaining them away as tiredness, or stress, or just getting older. In this video, I'm going to show you 7 subtle signs that your blood sugar may be out of control and what your body is trying to tell you before it's too late. Pay close attention, because some of these will sound very familiar. Sign number 1. And this is one that a lot of people brush off without a second thought. You drink a full glass of water, and 10 minutes later, your mouth is dry again. You feel thirsty through the afternoon, even though you have been drinking regularly. You wake up in the middle of the night reaching for water on the nightstand. Your lips feel dry, your throat feels dry. No matter how much you drink, the thirst keeps coming back. Most people explain this away. They tell themselves they simply did not drink enough today, or the weather is dry, or they had too much salt at dinner. And sometimes, yes, that is exactly what it is. But when this thirst is persistent, when it keeps coming back day after day, when water does not seem to satisfy it the way it used to, that is a different situation entirely. And it is one of the earliest and most consistent signals that blood sugar may be running too high. Here is what is actually happening inside your body. When your blood sugar is elevated, your kidneys go into overdrive trying to filter out the excess glucose. To do that, they pull large amounts of water from your tissues and flush it out through urine. Your body is essentially using water as a vehicle to carry the sugar out of your system. The result? Your tissues become depleted of fluid. Your body becomes mildly but persistently dehydrated no matter how much you drink, because the water is being used up faster than normal. And your brain responds to that dehydration the way it always does, with thirst. So the cycle continues. You drink, your kidneys filter more sugar, more water is pulled from your tissues. You feel thirsty again. This is not a coincidence, and it is not aging. It is a direct physiological response to elevated blood sugar, and it is your body asking for help in one of the clearest ways it knows how. If you have been unusually thirsty for more than a few days without an obvious explanation, please do not ignore it. It is worth a conversation with your doctor. Sign number 2, and this one is closely connected to what we just talked about, but it deserves its own attention because people dismiss it even more readily than the thirst. You wake up once during the night to use the bathroom, maybe twice. You tell yourself that is just what happens when you get older. Your bladder is not what it used to be. You drank too much water before bed. It is fine. But then it becomes 3 times a night. And it starts happening during the day too, more urgently, more frequently than you feel like it should, and the sleep disruption starts affecting how you feel during the day. Here is what is happening. When blood sugar is elevated, your kidneys are working overtime, exactly as we described a moment ago. They are processing more fluid than usual, pulling water out of your tissues to flush out the excess glucose, which means your bladder fills more often and more completely. This is especially noticeable at night. During the day, you are moving around, distracted, busy. But at night, when everything is quiet and still, your kidneys are still working, still filtering, still filling your bladder, and so you wake up again and again. The medical term for this is nocturia, nighttime urination, and while it does become more common as we age for various reasons, frequent nocturia combined with the persistent thirst we just discussed is a combination that healthcare providers take seriously as a potential indicator of elevated blood sugar. And here is something worth thinking about. If you are waking up 2 or 3 times a night to use the bathroom, you are not sleeping well. And poor sleep, in turn, affects your body's ability to regulate blood sugar. So the two problems feed each other. If this pattern sounds familiar, if nighttime bathroom trips have become a regular part of your sleep, please mention it to your doctor. It is a piece of information that matters. Sign number 3, and this is perhaps the most commonly dismissed sign of all, because it fits so neatly into explanations that have nothing to do with blood sugar. You slept 7 hours, maybe 8. You woke up and still felt exhausted. You dragged yourself through the morning. By early afternoon, you were already counting down to when you could sit down and rest. Your energy feels like it has a ceiling that keeps getting lower, and no amount of sleep seems to fully restore it. Most people, when they feel this way, go through a familiar list of explanations. Maybe it is stress, maybe it is age, maybe it is the weather, or not exercising enough, or iron levels, or thyroid. And any of those could be true. But blood sugar dysregulation is one of the most common and most frequently overlooked causes of chronic, persistent fatigue, particularly in adults over 55. And here is the reason, because it is genuinely counterintuitive. When your blood sugar is elevated, there is actually more glucose in your bloodstream than normal. You might expect that to mean more energy, more fuel available, but that is not how it works. The problem is delivery. Glucose needs insulin to enter your cells, to actually be used as fuel for energy. When blood sugar regulation breaks down, that process becomes inefficient. Your cells are not receiving the fuel they need, even though the fuel is right there in your blood. It is like having a full gas tank but a broken fuel line. The energy exists, it just cannot get where it needs to go. So, your cells are starving for fuel while your bloodstream has too much of it. And the result is fatigue. Real, persistent, bone-deep fatigue that sleep does not fix. Because the problem is not how much you slept. The problem is how efficiently your body is converting food into usable energy. If you have been tired in a way that feels different from normal tiredness, if rest does not restore you the way it used to, that difference is worth paying attention to. Sign number 4. And this one is subtle in a way that makes it particularly easy to miss, because it does not feel like a physical symptom. It feels like a mental one. And mental symptoms are easy to attribute to almost anything else. You walk into a room and forget why you went there. You read the same paragraph 3 times and it still does not sink in. You are in the middle of a conversation and lose your train of thought. Simple decisions feel harder than they should. Your thinking feels slower, less sharp, less reliable than it used to be. There is a kind of mental haziness that sits over your day, not dramatic, not alarming, but consistently there. Most people assume this is simply aging. The brain slows down, memory gets less reliable, concentration takes more effort. And while it is true that some cognitive changes come with age, persistent brain fog that is getting progressively worse is not something to simply accept. Here is what blood sugar has to do with it. Your brain is one of the most glucose-dependent organs in your body. It consumes a disproportionately large amount of energy relative to its size, and it is highly sensitive to fluctuations in blood sugar levels. When your blood sugar spikes too high, or when it crashes too low after a spike, the brain's fuel supply becomes unstable. And an unstable fuel supply means unstable cognitive function. The spikes and crashes that characterize dysregulated blood sugar create a kind of neurological turbulence. Your focus drops during the crashes. Your mental clarity suffers. Over time, if this pattern repeats day after day, the cumulative effect on cognitive performance becomes noticeable. Research has consistently shown a connection between chronically elevated blood sugar and accelerated cognitive decline, including increased risk of dementia over the long term. This is not meant to alarm you. It is meant to give you information. Because brain fog that you can address at the blood sugar level is very different from brain fog you simply have to live with. One has a cause you can act on, and acting on it sooner is always better than acting on it later. Sign number 5. And this is the one that surprises people the most, because it seems so completely unrelated to blood sugar that almost nobody connects the two. Your skin is dry, it itches. Maybe on your legs, maybe your arms, maybe your back or your torso. You apply lotion and it helps temporarily, but the dryness keeps coming back. You have tried different products, different soaps, you blame the winter air or the central heating or getting older, and you carry on. But here is what most people do not know. The skin is one of the first organs to show the effects of chronically elevated blood sugar, and it does so in several different ways. First, high blood sugar draws moisture out of the skin. The same mechanism that makes you constantly thirsty, your kidneys pulling water from your tissues to flush out excess glucose, affects your skin directly. The skin becomes dehydrated from the inside, and no amount of topical moisturizer fully addresses the root cause. Second, elevated blood sugar affects circulation. The small blood vessels that supply your skin with oxygen and nutrients become less efficient when blood sugar is chronically high. The skin in areas furthest from the heart, your lower legs, your feet, your arms, receives less of what it needs, and skin that is not being properly nourished becomes dry, dull, and prone to itching. Third, high blood sugar creates an environment that promotes nerve irritation in the skin. Some people experience a persistent itching sensation that is neurological in origin, coming not from dryness on the surface, but from irritated nerve endings beneath it. None of these mechanisms are dramatic on their own. Dry, itchy skin is so common, so easily explained by weather or products or age, that most people never think to look deeper. But if your skin has been persistently dry and itchy, if moisturizers provide only temporary relief and the problem keeps returning, consider asking your doctor to check your blood sugar. It is a simple test, and the answer might surprise you. Sign number 6. And this one is interesting because it feels less like a symptom and more like a personality trait, like something you were just born with, like you simply have a sweet tooth. You finish a full meal and within an hour you want something sweet. Or you find yourself snacking constantly throughout the day, not because you are genuinely hungry, but because you feel unsatisfied. There is a persistent craving for bread, pasta, sweets, crackers, foods that give you a quick hit of energy, and after you eat them, you feel better briefly. And then the craving comes back. This is not a lack of willpower. This is not simply a preference. This is a physiological cycle, and blood sugar dysregulation is at its center. Here is how it works. When you eat foods that are high in sugar or refined carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises quickly. Your body responds by releasing insulin to bring it back down. But when blood sugar regulation is already impaired, this response can become exaggerated. Your blood sugar drops too far after the initial spike. That crash triggers hunger signals and cravings. Your body interprets the low blood sugar as an emergency and demands more fast energy, more sugar, more carbs, to bring the levels back up, and so you eat again. Your blood sugar spikes again, crashes again, and the craving cycle continues, often all day long. The cruel irony is that the foods that feel most satisfying in the moment are the exact foods that perpetuate the cycle. Each time you give in to the craving, you reset the spike crash pattern and guarantee the next craving will arrive. Recognizing this cycle for what it is, not a personal failing, but a physiological response to dysregulated blood sugar, is the first step toward interrupting it. Protein, fiber, and fat slow the absorption of glucose and prevent the sharp spikes that trigger the crashes. But understanding why the craving is there in the first place matters just as much as knowing what to eat instead. Sign number 7. And this one is among the most important because when it appears, it is telling you that the effects of elevated blood sugar have already progressed beyond the early stages. You get a small cut, a minor scrape, a bruise from bumping into the corner of a table, and you notice that it takes longer to heal than it seems like it should. The cut is still visible after 2 weeks. The bruise is still yellow and fading after 10 days. A small skin irritation that should clear up in a few days lingers for much longer. Most people attribute this to age. Healing slows down as we get older, and that is true to a degree. But there is a specific, measurable mechanism by which elevated blood sugar makes healing significantly slower, and it is worth understanding. When blood sugar is chronically high, several things happen to the body's repair systems simultaneously. First, circulation is compromised. High blood sugar gradually damages the walls of small blood vessels throughout the body, the tiny capillaries that carry oxygen, white blood cells, and nutrients directly to damaged tissue. When these vessels are damaged or narrowed, the healing ingredients your body produces simply cannot reach the wound efficiently. The repair process slows down. Second, the immune response is weakened. White blood cells, your body's primary infection fighters and wound healers, function less effectively in a high glucose environment. They move more slowly to the site of an injury and work less efficiently once they arrive. This is why infections in people with poorly controlled blood sugar can escalate faster and become more serious. Third, the proteins that rebuild tissue and form new skin are produced more slowly when blood sugar is elevated. The structural scaffolding of healing is compromised at a cellular level. The result of all three of these mechanisms working together is a body that heals more slowly, more incompletely, and with more risk of complication than it should. If you have noticed that minor injuries are taking noticeably longer to heal than they used to, please do not file that away as simply getting older. It is a specific, actionable signal, and it deserves a specific response. So let's talk about what to actually do, because information without action is just worry. And I do not want to leave you with worry. I want to leave you with a clear, simple path forward. If you recognize 2 or 3 of these signs in yourself, or more, here is where to start. The first step is the most important one. Do not ignore it. Do not file this video away and go back to your day unchanged. The signs we discussed today are not random. They have a cause. And that cause is addressable. Make an appointment with your doctor and ask specifically about your blood sugar. A fasting glucose test is simple, inexpensive, and gives you clear, concrete information about where you stand. You cannot manage something you are not measuring. And knowing is always better than not knowing, even when the answer is not what you hoped for, because an early answer gives you options. A late answer gives you fewer. While you are working on getting that appointment, here are 4 things you can start doing today that genuinely move the needle on blood sugar regulation. Reduce sugar and refined carbohydrates. This does not have to be dramatic or all or nothing. Start by cutting back on the most obvious sources: sodas, sweets, white bread, processed snacks. Small reductions made consistently add up to meaningful change. Drink more water. Proper hydration supports your kidneys in processing glucose and helps maintain stable blood sugar levels. 8 glasses a day is a reasonable target for most people. Walk every day. Even 10 to 15 minutes of walking after a meal helps your muscles absorb glucose from your bloodstream and reduces the post-meal blood sugar spike. It does not have to be intense. It just has to be consistent. Eat balanced meals with protein and fiber at every sitting. Protein and fiber slow the digestion of carbohydrates and prevent the sharp spikes that drive the cycle of cravings, crashes, and fatigue that we talked about earlier. None of these changes are extreme. None of them require a complete overhaul of your life, but each one, practiced daily, makes a real and measurable difference in how your body manages blood sugar. And together, they can begin to shift the pattern significantly, sometimes within just a few weeks. Your body is always communicating with you, always. The question is whether you are listening and whether you know the language. The 7 signs we covered today are not random inconveniences. They are not just the unavoidable costs of getting older. They are a language, a specific, consistent set of signals that your body uses to tell you something important is happening, something that needs your attention before it becomes something harder to manage. Constant thirst that water does not satisfy, frequent nighttime urination that disrupts your sleep, fatigue that rest does not fix, brain fog that clouds your thinking, skin that stays dry and itchy no matter what you use, cravings that cycle endlessly through your day, wounds that heal more slowly than they should. Individually, each of these is easy to explain away. Together, they tell a story. And that story is worth listening to. The subtle signs always come before the serious ones. That is actually good news, because it means you have time. Time to ask the right questions, get the right information, and make the changes that can protect your health for years to come. So here is what I am asking you to do after this video ends. Think about which of these 7 signs you recognized in yourself. Be honest. If the answer is 2 or more, make the call to your doctor this week. Not next month, this week. Ask about your blood sugar, get the number, know where you stand. Because when it comes to blood sugar, the window between subtle warning and serious complication is open longer than most people realize, but it does not stay open forever. If this video was useful to you, please hit the like button right now. It helps this information reach other people who need it. Share it with someone you care about. A spouse, a sibling, a friend who has been mentioning some of these symptoms without knowing what they might mean. And subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Every week, I bring you honest, practical health conversations, the kind that help you understand your body and stay ahead of problems before they find you. Take care of yourself. You deserve to feel well, and now you have one more tool to help make that happen. I will see you in the next one.